We are live with Jack Schafer. Did I say your last name right?
Yes, Jack Schafer.
Jack Schafer. Okay, and so Jack is an expert on charisma, if you will. And the reason his background is so intriguing, I read an article about how charisma affects sales, and he was one of the people that were quoted in there. He is an author. He spent decades with the FBI. What was your role in the FBI?
I was a counterintelligence officer and counterterrorism, and I was a behavioral analyst.
An analyst. Okay. So that is like, first of all, I think we should start right there. That is so super interesting to me. How did you get into the FBI?
Well, I was a police officer first, and then I was seeking more opportunities. And then I applied for the FBI, and fortunately enough, I was able to get a position with them. And I worked a number of different cases, but I kind of settled into counterintelligence and counterterrorism, and eventually became a behavioral analyst with the FBI.
Yeah, and I'm almost through with your book, and so how were you trained in that field? Was it like a psychology degree? Did the FBI train you?
Yeah, I went back to grad school and got a PhD in psychology. And then the FBI did a lot of on-the-job training with me for approximately 2 years before I was fully functional as a behavioral analyst.
Okay. And through your job was mainly to try to recruit potential spies, right?
Right. Well, we're different from the behavioral analysis unit, which you typically see on TV. Those people go to crime scenes, and based on the evidence, they try to figure out who did it. We in the behavioral analysis program, we typically had a suspect we want to recruit, we want to interview, we want to develop as a source. So we would sit in a room and dissect their personalities and find weaknesses in their personalities, and then devise investigative strategies to take advantage of those vulnerabilities.
And so through all this, you developed a series. Did you develop a series of techniques, or did you take something somebody had, or a combination of both to get people to like you as you're doing the recruitment?
Yeah, basically what we did, we looked at human behavior. We found out, what do humans do when they interact with each other? What do they do how do people like one another? So what we did, we thin sliced the relationships that humans have, and then we developed these models based on observations of human interaction.
Yeah, and this has been fascinating to me since before I even got into sales. And the reason why, I just remember there was this guy that I used to hang out with that lived in another town, and he'd come to visit me, and when I go to a party or a bar or a get together, the guy, he had so much charisma through the things what I realized he was doing, I don't know if it was consciously or if he was a natural at it or something he learned, but he'd walk into a room, he'd smile, he'd shake your hand, he would just light up the room to the point that I'd see my friends the next time and they're like, hey, who was that guy? He was really super cool. Obviously he was really good with ladies as well, but he would just be able to walk in there and light up the room. And what I've been studying from you and others is that these, I guess for some people it does come naturally, but it's also something that's learned, correct?
Right. There's basically three friend signals that we use when we meet one another, either for the first time or subsequent meetings. The first one is an eyebrow flash, and that's a long distance friend signal that says, I'm not a threat. So when we approach one another, one person will eyebrow flash 5 to 6 feet before meeting the other person, and the other person will reciprocate by eyebrow flashing back. An eyebrow flash is a quick up and down movement of the eyebrows, and all that means is, I'm not a threat, long distance threat. The second thing is, if you tilt your head, then you expose your carotid artery, which is a very vulnerable part of your body. So what you're telling the other person is, I don't fear that you're going to hurt me, and you don't pose a threat. So that's a friend signal. The other one is a smile. And if we smile, then we release endorphins, and endorphins make us feel good about ourselves. And then that kind of segues into the golden rule of friendship. If you want people to like you, you make other people feel good about themselves. So when you smile, the other person smiles back, you're feeling good about yourself because you're releasing endorphins. The other person is feeling good about themselves because they're releasing endorphins. And that follows the golden rule of friendship. If I make you feel good about you, you're going to like me.
Yeah. And so I think what I read is when you retired, were you giving the classes to the FBI after you retired? Or I think I remember the story in The Light Switch, the book, The Light Switch. You said you had two people that came in because they had a friend that took your class, and these guys were like, "Oh, were they FBI agents?"
No, that was for another agency.
Okay. And so did you retire from the FBI and start teaching that?
Yes, I worked for a company in out of Washington, D.C., a contractor who did work for different government agencies.
Okay. And at that point, did you start realizing that this could be used for all walks of life and industry?
Yeah, that was the one moment where the two kids were so early for class and they were eager to start, and that's unusual.
Yeah.
And I asked them, "Why are you here so early?" They said, "We want to learn what you taught our friend in the last class." And I said, "Well, what's that all about?" And they said, "Well, he used all the techniques to pick up a woman in a bar, and we want to do that." And I said, "Well, this isn't about picking up girls. This is about becoming good intelligence officers." But then I got to thinking, all those techniques do blend quite nicely with normal behaviors.
Yeah.
And that's what kind of led me to write The Like Switch.
Yeah.
Let people know that these are just natural things that we can do to become friends, mend relationships, make relationships stronger.
And how does that relate to sales? Because we own a real estate company. We have 50 agents. And that, sales techniques are obviously very interesting to us. How do you relate that to sales, and are you teaching that to sales organizations?
Yeah, it's very important in sales, because if you think about when you're going to buy something, would you buy something from somebody you didn't like? Mm-hmm. The answer is probably not, unless you desperately need that good or service, or there was no other way. So you typically, especially in real estate, you buy houses from people you like. You don't buy houses from people you don't like.
Yeah.
So getting someone to like you in the real estate is very important. The second thing you have to do is to find out what the sales objectives are. Mm-hmm. What does that person want out of a piece of real estate? What are they looking for? And you have to learn that. And a lot of times people don't offer that readily.
Yeah.
So what you have to do is kind of tease it out of them, or what we call elicit from them what the kind of property they're looking for.
Yeah.
And then once you can marry those two together, you get the person to like you, you find out what the other person needs, then it's just a matter of finding a suitable piece of property to sell them.
Right. So I'm going to get in that one second. First of all, Kelly, if anybody has any questions on any of the places we're going live, please let us know, and we'll get to that in a second. Secondly, guys, I should have started with this, but if you're watching this on YouTube, hit the like button, subscribe. Same thing on LinkedIn. But getting back to what you were saying, okay? There's a guy, Anthony Lamacchia, we take a course from him, and when we're talking to leads on the phone, right? One of the things that he teaches that we've adopted is like, we'll question people, like we'll interrogate them when they're just, calling on a forced registration. Or like, okay, do you have a real estate agent? Are you pre-approved? How much money do you have in your bank? And what he teaches, which we've adopted, is like, just get the appointment. Like all that stuff can wait, because if you can't establish that relationship, they're not going to, they're just going to go on to the next person. And so our goal on the phone is to get the in-person meeting. And it kind of goes with what you're saying about, finding out what they want is going to occur after you build that relationship, right?
Right. So there's several things that you can do to quickly establish rapport. And one of them is find common ground with that person. There's 3 ways to find common ground. The first way is contemporaneous common ground. That means we both share something in common. I'm a Sox fan, you're a Sox fan. We share something in common. If we don't share something in common, perhaps the second way we can use is temporal common ground. That means over time. You're from one city and I visited that city at one time in the past. I could say, oh, I'm not from Chicago, but I visited Chicago 2 years ago to give a speech or to work on some business. So over time, we have common ground. And the last one is vicarious common ground. So we live through somebody else. If you aren't from Chicago, they're from Chicago, and you don't want to lie to them, you want to be truthful, but you know somebody that was in Chicago. So you say, oh, my friend lived in Chicago, or my friend grew up in Chicago. So what you're doing is you're finding that vicarious common ground. And it works very, very quickly if you establish common ground with somebody. And it's very easy to do. So what you have to do is look at how the person dresses, what they say, what they do. Maybe they have sports logos. If you're a White Sox fan and I'm a White Sox fan, great. But what if you're a Cubs fan and I'm a White Sox fan? Well, we both like baseball.
Yeah.
But what if you're a NASCAR fan? I'm not a NASCAR fan, but my sister-in-law is a NASCAR fan.
Yeah.
So through my sister-in-law, I have established common ground with you.
That's so interesting. Because when we teach in our listing presentation, when we go to a listing appointment to try to get the listing, right? The first thing that we do is we ask them, do you mind if we put our stuff on the counter, right? I think there's some psychological, play with that. And then the second thing is we ask for the tour of the house. And one of the main reasons that you're touring the house is because you're looking on their walls, their trophies, their diplomas, to try to find that common ground. And that's a really important thing. You're looking at the house, you're gonna talk about what you're doing at the house, but if they're from Louisiana and I'm from Louisiana, oh, you're from Louisiana, that's a huge bonding moment right there. So
the other thing to do, another good tool is something called the empathetic statement or the empathic statement, where you take what that person says, feel, or what they do, and you could use parallel language and mirror it back to them. That's a very effective rapport building tool. So you're interested in selling your house. So you want to downsize. So you just so you make it about the other person, because the other person wants to be the focus of the attention. So you don't say, I know how you feel.
Yeah.
So and you want to put it on the other person. And then kind of the cherry on the sundae would be to allow them to flatter themselves. In other words, you don't want to use direct flatter. If you walk in the house, oh, that's nice, this, that's nice, that, and people go yeah, he's a real estate guy. He's trying to, schmooze me. The best way to do that is to allow them to flatter themselves. Wow, it takes a long time to have such a nice house, or it takes a special person to envision the decorating here.
Yeah, or where did you get all these design tips? Where did you get this furniture? And then let them go into that.
Yeah. So what they're doing is they're actually, you're not directly flattering them. You're actually allowing them to flatter themselves.
Right.
And very few of us will miss an opportunity to flatter ourselves. I certainly don't miss any opportunities.
Okay. So, I'm very fascinated by the idea that people can learn charisma, right? What would you say to someone who, and we know several people, what's interesting in sales, there are 2 types of people. There are people that are, extroverts like myself. I'm the kind of guy that if you're an introvert, you don't want to sit next to me in a plane, right? And then there are people that what I found interesting in my career is that there are also people who are introverts who are very, very detail oriented, that actually through process, they're actually good at sales. But I also think that those same people could even be better by learning the techniques of charisma, just small things. What would be your advice for them?
I would say it's like an introvert has a fully charged battery when they get up in the morning. And then over the day, the battery discharges energy until the evening when they're exhausted, they need to recharge their battery.
Mm-hmm.
Extroverts, on the other hand, their switch is always on. They're always taking energy from other people. It's like an alternator, it just keeps running. So what introverts have to do is practice these rapport building tools, and they can be just as efficient as an extrovert. It just takes them a lot more energy to do it.
Yeah. In
But
practice.
if they know that in practice, well, extroverts, you don't need to practice.
Yeah.
Extroverts just know how to do it. But the introverts need to practice a bit.
Yeah.
And that's what that book is about, is to tell people, this is how you build rapport. This is how you get people to like you. And if I can identify those specific techniques to get people to like you, then an introvert can do that very efficiently.
Mm-hmm.
But it just takes a little more energy for them to get engaged.
Yeah. Once again, we're interviewing Jack Schafer. He has the book, the Like Switch, and what is the other book you have? I haven't got that yet.
The Truth Detector.
The Truth Detector.
And that is an elicitation tool to get people to tell the truth before they have a chance to lie. So if one technique I love to use is the presumptive statement. If you present a statement that's either true or false, people will have a tendency to correct you. There's this overwhelming psychological desire to correct other people. So if you say, oh, I noticed that they did a good job remodeling the basement after the flood.
Yeah.
Now, they're either going to say, yes, they did, and that they would acknowledge the flood, or no, they didn't, there was never any flood. So they're going to correct you. But if you ask them, is there flooding in the basement? Oh, no, sir. Never flood. Doesn't leak.
Very interesting. So getting back to the sales part of it, like one of the things that I've got the two main questions I'm going to ask you. One is, I went to a appointment the other day with one of my agents, trying to help him. It was in my neighborhood, which I'm an expert in my neighborhood. And, I've been studying these techniques since I met these guys, 30 years ago, walk into a room, smile, shake your hand, and like when you're wearing a mask, it's like, I'm like, oh man, that's like half my charisma right there. Right. So what do you recommend there?
Well, what you have to do is then rely on the verbal stuff. Uh-huh. And, there's another thing. If you want to use humor, it has to be self-deprecating humor. Yeah. But when people laugh, they release endorphins, and that makes people feel good about themselves. So humor might be one way. Empathic statements might be another way. You have to be more practice to be a little more expressive with your eyes. Yeah.
Okay. And then that also segues to my next question is, when it comes to, phone sales, there's a guy that I follow, Chris Smith, that I think he says that like so much of human communication is body language, and only, I think he said something like 7% is verbal, right?
That's about right.
He emphasizes on tone. Do you have anything else that you would say about that?
Well, what I would recommend is combining the empathic statement with the presumptive statement. So you have a rapport building tool with an elicitation tool. So you can say, so you're looking to downsize. Mm-hmm. So you would be an empathic statement, and the presumptive is you're looking to downsize, or you're looking to upsize. So you're doing this. So what you're doing is you're putting the attention on the other person, and you're making a statement, and you're eliciting that information from them rather than asking the direct question. It's kind of a presumptive question.
Yeah.
People will typically offer the truth. The other thing you can do is talk about a third person, because when people are asked direct questions, they tend to look to social norms for the answers. So a good example I like to use is if you ask your fiance, if you ask your future husband, do you cheat? What do you feel about cheating? Well, what's he going to say? Well, I think cheating's a good thing. No, he's going to say, of course not. So he's going to reach out to the social norms and say, of course, cheating's bad.
Yeah.
A way to get to how he really feels is to ask about a third person. My cousin Mary Beth, her husband cheated on her, and you want to hear cheating's bad. But if you hear answers like, well, he probably deserves it, she wasn't paying attention to him, it happens.
Yeah.
You hear those kind of words because that's coming from the heart.
Right.
You can say, well, I have another client that prefers this.
Mm-hmm.
And then kind of test. And I do that, especially in this politically charged world.
Yeah.
I'm very careful about what I say because I'm a professor in a classroom. So I would often say, well, my friend thinks that the current government is not very effective.
Yeah.
Well, they'll say yes or no. So you know exactly where they stand without exposing yourself to any kind of criticism.
Right. And that's like, even in sales, I think of like, it's a little bit less of an issue now, but like in my neighborhood a few years ago, 5 years ago, when you would have a home seller, like they would say, I want to sell my home, but I don't want a builder to come in and tear it down, like I had to dance around that question. Now it's so prevalent that everybody knows that like sometimes a builder is going to pay more than an actual homeowner. But that's a good technique. Kelly, did you have any questions? Did we get any questions from anybody?
We did not get any questions from agents. And honestly, you guys covered everything that I was going to ask anyway, so nothing on my end.
So I want people to know that I am almost finished with this book, The Light Switch. I think it is amazing. That can be found on Amazon. I'm listening to it on Audible. Where can people find you, Jack?
I'm on the Facebook and Twitter. My wife handles most of my social media. So
we will be posting links to your accounts in the comment section below. And I can't thank you enough. This is so interesting. I'm actually really, when I went to that listing appointment 2 days ago, I was like, I was kind of, doing the jugular and all that stuff.
I think I'm going to leave you with a special technique.
Okay.
It is if you're going through a series of features in a home, and you want to know what feature does that person like or they don't like, or if you get to the money issue, is that the problem? So here's what you want to look for. You want to look for the lip purse. And that's just a slight outward pushing of the not like that, but a slight outward pushing of the lips, right? That means that person has already formed a negative opinion about what you just said. So if you go through the features and say, this feature, no lip purse, that feature, no lip purse. Maybe they don't like the deck. You'll see a lip purse. You say, oh, then you try to prevent them from saying no. So you want to add an empathic statement. So you feel the deck needs a little work. Yeah. You feel the basement needs a little work. Or you get to the money issue. You get a little lip purse. Oh, so the money's just a little bit more than you can afford. Then what you want to do is come in with an empathic conditional by saying, if I can make this affordable, would you buy it? Yeah. And that you want to get them to say yes, articulate yes, because if you get that person to make a verbal commitment, the probability they'll follow through on that increases substantially. Yeah. Because there's a psychological principle of consistency. When people say something, they want to live up to what they say. So you've got to get that commitment, on that empathic conditional. So you're building that rapport, you're putting a conditional in. And if they say, yes, if you can sell me this house at this price, absolutely, I'd buy it. Well, you're halfway to your sale. Yeah. So now get to the right number.
I love that. I love that because you're reading into what they want and you're guiding them without them having to tell you. And that's, you know, in my mind, that's not being sneaky. That's being of service, right?
Wait, what you want to do is you want to get what do you want? You want that person to be happy, and of course,
Yeah.
you're going to made a sale. They're going to be happy they have a house or they've sold a house.
Yeah.
So it's a win-win.
Yeah.
And like sometimes people don't know what they want or they don't know how to navigate real estate.
Yeah.
But you can't tell them directly because you'll make them feel like they're ignorant or something.
Yeah.
So what you want to do is gently guide them through the process without them experiencing the bumps along the way.
Absolutely. I love that. Well, Jack, you are a wealth of knowledge. Thank you for coming on. And we'll be putting the links in here and send you a copy of this. But thank you so much for today.
Okay, you're welcome.
Have a great day.
Thank you.